with all the paintings in my practice, they are all derived through a process of paint, an application of paint and a subtraction of paint. If I'm not sure what coat or jumper or top the person's wearing, it's sort of built up through a haze of layers of paint and rubbing back through and trying to create shape almost through that. It allowed a kind of conversation between the abstract and the figurative as well, which is something I've always been really interested in. The linear painted line versus the more gesturally applied painted line. There's a kind of a constant battle between the two, and that friction can sometimes offer quite an interesting dilemma to work with in a way. There is a lot of uncertainty from my part when I'm starting. What will the backdrop be like? What will their clothes look like? Who are they? What would their name be? I think certain conversations like that are floating around in my head when I'm in the studio do either direct the painting, or they certainly allow aspects of that process to develop. Over the years, they have taken on this guise of a profile format. They feel like they're more rooted in an art historical context. They feel familiar, yet there's a kind of an outer kilter quality to them. And I quite like the idea that you could take something which was rooted in hierarchy in art history and it become the everyday and the normal. If I've drawn something and it's not quite right, I might then flip the page over and use that as a kind of a guide or an outline. And it becomes another kind of layer of removed, if you like. We're kind of reducing that image. For example, of Van Gogh, probably one of the most revered portraits or self-portraits in the world. This kind of very quick sketch, quite spontaneously, doesn't quite work. If you then turn the page over, you're kind of working in reverse. And you can start to edit out your marks and add in other marks, and sometimes that can be a really interesting way of getting something down very quickly. And then, once I've kind of got an idea of what I want to make, I'll then start making a drawing, which at that point is kind of possibly fictitious, but it has its origins in something which is tangible. The image that you end up with is probably far removed from the original sketch or the original idea. And then you start editing stuff out that isn't really important. And hopefully at the end of it, you end up with something which has its origins in those things in a sketchbook, but is kind of far removed and far filtered from it. Sometimes through the process of making and putting paint down, you can start to solve problems in other paintings. Maybe in a day I might be working on 3 or 4 paintings, and if they're at a similar sort of infancy, it might be that I'm using tonally similar paint colours or tones or shapes or marks or gestures. So there is also a kind of an economy in that, I guess. I don't want to say I don't know what colours I'm going to use before I make a painting. Of course I have an idea. Once I have an image, it is pot luck which colours I'm going to use, but it's a dialogue between the paint that's already on the canvas that's dried or dried enough to take another layer, and the paint colours that I think might work. That is the part I genuinely don't know what's going to happen. I have an idea, but there's no exact blueprint for it. Like I was thinking earlier, like if I didn't have kids, would I be here all the time? And I think maybe it's a younger person thing to like that romantic thing of living and working in their studio, but I couldn't think of anything worse. I still love coming to work. You know, that's the thing. It's like it's a job, but it doesn't feel like a chore. It's still a job I love to do. It's like, you know, I know all artists say it is the best job in the world, but it doesn't come without trial and tribulation and failure and all those things that make for a successful painting, I guess.